Welcome to another deep dive. Get ready, because today we're going to be talking about how we see the world.
Ooh, I like that.
Not just with our eyes, though,
Right.
but also with our minds.
That's even better.
We'll be taking a close look at the first chapter of John Berger's Ways of Seeing.
Oh, yeah. Great book.
It was originally a BBC television series.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and Berger has some really thought-provoking ideas about how our assumptions shape our perceptions.
Totally. I'm excited to dig into this.
Me too, so let's get right to it. Berger starts off with this really simple but powerful idea. Seeing comes before words.
Makes sense.
Yeah, like babies, you know?
Oh, yeah. They look and recognize things long before they can actually say anything.
Exactly. So we kind of build our first understanding of the world through just looking, through pure observation.
Right. Just taking it all in.
But then, and this is where it gets really interesting,
Yep.
Berger argues that language actually ends up shaping what we see, even though we see first.
So the words we learn actually change how we interpret what we're seeing.
Exactly. It's like language becomes this filter, a lens that we view everything through.
Whoa, that's deep.
Right. So it makes you wonder,
Yeah.
can we ever truly see something without all that baggage, without the language and the culture that shapes our thinking?
I don't know. It's a tough question.
For sure. And it leads us right to Berger's next big idea.
Hit me with it.
Every image, he says, embodies a way of seeing.
Okay.
He uses photography as an example.
Which makes sense since the book was based on a TV show.
Totally. And we often think of photography as this objective, like, mechanical process,
Yeah.
right?
We just point and shoot.
But Berger points out that even photographers make choices, like how they frame the shot, the exact moment they click the shutter.
Decisions.
And all those decisions ultimately impact how we're going to see that image, how we're going to interpret it.
It's like they're choosing which story to tell.
Out of all the possible stories within that scene. Exactly. And of course, this applies even more to like paintings and other art forms where the artist's vision is so central.
For sure.
But then Berger kind of throws us a curveball.
Yeah.
He criticizes the traditional art world for what he calls mystifying art.
Oh, that sounds juicy.
It is. So he uses this great example of a friend's Hall's painting. And there's this art historian describing it all fancy, you know, talking about brushstrokes and composition.
Trying to sound smart.
Right? But Berger's like, hold up, wait a minute. The people in this painting, they were actually destitute. They were probably relying on charity. But the historian totally ignores that social context.
So he's just like romanticizing poverty.
In a way, yeah. And that gets to the heart of what Berger means by mystification.
I'm starting to see it.
It's not just about making art seem special. It's about controlling its meaning.
Right.
You can detach the art from its context and kind of manipulate its message.
So you strip away its power to actually challenge anything.
Exactly, to make people question the status quo or those hierarchies.
That is pretty sneaky.
Yeah. And speaking of challenging the status quo, Berger brings in a real game changer, the camera.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Huge. It completely shifted our perspective, both literally and figuratively.
Literally, yeah, you can see things from new angles.
Right. He quotes this Soviet filmmaker who describes the camera as a mechanical eye, showing us a world we wouldn't have otherwise known.
Wow, almost like a superpower.
Yeah, like the camera kind of democratized vision.
I like that.
It challenges the static, single-perspective view that was so dominant in traditional art. Suddenly, you could capture movement, see from multiple angles, zoom in on details you'd never notice with the naked eye.
That makes sense.
It's so different to experience a historical event, like think about it if you just read about it in a book, versus seeing an actual photograph.
Oh, for sure. A photo makes you feel like you're right there.
Totally, witnessing it firsthand. And that's incredibly powerful, right? It can challenge those official narratives, expose injustices.
Give a voice to people who haven't been heard.
Exactly, and that brings me to Berger's next point. The meaning of a painting, he says, changes when it's reproduced.
Okay, interesting.
It's a key part of his argument. With mass reproduction, art isn't tied to a specific location or a unique object anymore.
Right.
It kind of takes on this new life and maybe even a new meaning.
Become something else.
Yeah, like he gives the example of a church painting. In its original setting, it's part of the architecture, the religious experience of that space.
Right.
But when you see a reproduction, like in a book or on a postcard,
It's just a picture.
right, Its context and its meaning are totally different.
Totally different.
He also talks about Da Vinci's Virgin of the Rocks, which is in the National Gallery, and there's this whole mystique around seeing the original.
Oh, yeah.
But then what happens when you see a poster of it in the gift shop?
Aha, good point.
Or a picture online?
Right.
Then he contrasts that with Van Gogh's Wheatfield with Crows, which is this deeply personal and expressive work.
Yeah, a masterpiece.
But now it's reproduced everywhere. So does its accessibility diminish its power? Or does it reach a wider audience? Does it create new layers of meaning?
Wow, that's a good question.
Right. Like I have a poster of Starry Night on my wall.
Uh-huh. Me too.
Does it even compare to seeing the real thing?
Probably not.
But Berger's point is that in the age of reproduction, paintings function more like information than unique objects.
That's interesting.
Like, think about it. How do you mostly encounter art these days? Is it museums, books, online? Yeah, online for sure. Maybe a book sometimes.
Me too. And Berger even includes a table in the book showing this connection between museum visits and education levels.
Really?
Yeah, which raises another question. Who actually has access to the original artwork? And how does that impact our understanding? Does it change how we value art?
So many things to think about.
It's a real paradox, right?
Yeah.
Makes you think.
Totally. And Berger goes even further. He says the way we reproduce art can actually hide its social and political messages. Like it can disguise or even deny them.
Wow, how does that work?
Well, he talks about how some images are used to promote national identity, create a sense of unity.
Yeah, I could see that.
But that unity can be based on a romanticized view of the past, or even an exclusionary one.
Oh, so it's like a carefully constructed narrative?
Exactly. And he also gives examples of art being used to reinforce hierarchies. Like, think about those classic portraits of kings and noblemen.
Yeah, projecting power and authority.
Totally.
Images have always been used for persuasion, haven't they?
Right. Even propaganda.
And with today's mass media.
It's amplified like crazy.
Think about advertising.
Political campaigns.
Social media.
It's everywhere.
Constantly shaping our desires.
Our beliefs.
Our understanding of the world.
It's like we're drowning in images.
Sometimes feels that way.
So how do we even know which images are trying to inform us?
Or manipulate us.
Or just sell us something?
That's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more important than ever to develop that critical eye.
To be able to see beyond the surface.
And question the intentions behind the image.
To see those hidden messages.
So how do we do that? How do we become more aware?
Well, context is key.
Okay.
Who created the image?
Right.
What purpose does it serve?
What story is it telling?
And what story is it silencing?
Ooh, I like that.
Berger actually argues that understanding the history of art is a political act.
Whoa, that's a strong statement.
It is.
But I'm starting to see what he means.
If we don't question the images we see,
we risk being manipulated by them.
Exactly. We need to become conscious viewers.
Active participants.
Not just passive consumers.
Be aware of the narratives.
Consider the historical and social forces.
This is so eye-opening.
It really makes you rethink how you look at the world.
Everything from paintings in a museum
to photos on your phone.
It's all connected.
I think that's Berger's goal.
Yeah.
To empower us to see the world with more awareness.
With more critical thinking.
Because the way we see shapes how we understand ourselves.
And our place in the world. This conversation has been incredible. I have so many thoughts swirling around right now.
Me too.
And I know our listeners do too. Welcome back. So we've been really diving deep into ways of seeing.
Yeah, some deep thoughts for sure.
Definitely. And Berger really makes you think about how art connects to power in society.
It's like he's saying you can't separate the two,
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And, we've been hearing from you, our listeners, with some great feedback.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of you are really grappling with these ideas, which is awesome.
Love that.
Like Sarah wrote in and said, Berger's idea that every image embodies a way of seeing got me thinking about my own photography. Am I capturing reality or just my own interpretation?
Yeah, what is reality anyway?
Right. That's the big question Berger's making us ask.
And Sarah's point about photography. It's so relevant because we all take pictures now with our phones and everything.
We're all photographers in a way.
Exactly. And each picture we take is a choice, whether we realize it or not.
Exactly. And David had another great comment.
What do you say?
He said, I get what Berger's saying about museums, but I still love going. Isn't there value in seeing the original artwork?
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
Like there's that aura, that feeling of being in the presence of something special.
It's a totally different experience than looking at a reproduction.
Yeah, the scale, the texture, the way the light hits it.
You don't get that from a book or online.
Right. But Berger's point is that we should also be aware of, like, the whole system around art in museums.
The context.
Yeah, that sense of reverence. Like, paintings are untouchable objects.
Puts them on a pedestal.
And sometimes that distracts from the message, you know?
It's like we forget that these works were created in a certain time and place.
With social and political forces at play.
Berger's reminding us to be active viewers,
Not just passive.
for question the stories we're being told.
He really goes all in, even says understanding the history of art is a political issue.
Which, the more we've been talking, the more it makes sense.
Right. Because images are so powerful, they shape our opinions.
They reinforce power structures, they push agendas.
We're surrounded by them.
So next time you're in a museum, or looking at an art book, or even just scrolling through your phone,
Take a second to really think about what you're seeing.
ask yourself who created this? What's the purpose? What story is it telling, and what story is it maybe not telling?
It's about becoming aware of all those layers of meaning.
And realizing that looking is not passive,
It's an active way of engaging with the world.
shaping our own perceptions.
This deep dive into ways of seeing has been incredible.
Mind-blowing. Even
I know I'm going to be looking at art differently now.
you too.
And I hope you will too, our amazing listeners. If you haven't already, definitely check out the full text of Ways of Seeing. Then let us know what you think.
We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.